Welcome.
The joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 368 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. What's up? We're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today, hopefully. Let's get to it. Why wait? Let's go. Let me share my screen. Right, today is June 12th, 2024, episode 368. I start every stream like this. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know how the stream's going to go. I think I know what I want to do. I don't know how it's going to go, though. It might go completely sideways. I might get stuck. We might end up getting distracted by something. Who knows? Hardware failures. The stream might collapse. All sorts of things might go wrong. And that's okay. We'll deal with it as it comes. Like I say, every stream, more or less, this is software development in the raw, so you're just going to watch me deal with stuff as it comes, like I would do normally during my day job. Second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is available to you. If you're watching this on YouTube or, I guess just YouTube, it's down in the video description. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's over in the details section, a link to the agenda. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's down in the channel details. And as I update the agenda, like I might continue to add some text here as the stream goes on, you'll see this little spinny spin. And then if you reload the agenda, it should be up to date. And if I add any links or something, you'll be able to click on them. Okay. Hey, Crushed Optimist is reporting in, saying that they can confirm that the jump list long URI fix, that's something that we worked on a couple of weeks back. Can't exactly remember when this landed. But this was Crushed Optimist's bug. And I think we determined that the problem was that we were accidentally truncating along URLs that we were sending to the jump list. And this had always been a bug. We had always been truncating these things. And Crushed Optimist directed my attention to this because they were experiencing the problem, and the fix for this landed about a month ago in version 127, which went out to release yesterday, and Crushed Optimist just confirmed that in version 127, it's resolved their issue. Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear it, Crushed Optimist. What a success story. You report a thing in the Joy of Coding, you watch it get fixed, and then the fix goes out and you get to enjoy the fix. Like, that's the greatest thing ever. How often do you get to do that in the software you use often? So I'm glad that worked out. What am I working on today? Well, actually, I have a couple things I want to do. So I think you might recall last week I'd started to talk a little bit about the profile backup feature that I'm working on. And I'm not working on it alone. I have some colleagues who are working on patches for various parts of the project. And one of them just got a bunch of patches reviewed. They landed, I think, on Monday, and then they bounced due to a test failure. And then the person who was working on them went on PTO. They're going to be away for the rest of the week. And so they said, hey, if someone else wants to take over these patches, figure out what's wrong with it, and get the patches landed, that'd be great. So before they left, my colleague, her name's Catherine, actually. Catherine figured out what was wrong with it and posted a patch and a try push and was like, if this comes back green, maybe try landing these or a variation thereof. And I looked at the patch. I liked it, like the fix that she used. I had some slight alterations that I wanted to make to it just to simplify it a little bit, but otherwise I thought it was sound. And I pushed it to try, and try just came back green. Well, mostly green. There are some intermittent test failures that are known, which is unfortunate because this might be a very frequent one. We'll see. Orange factor, 16 failures on trunk in the past week, and this one only landed a few days ago. So we might end up having to address this intermittent sooner rather than later. But long story short, the test failure that Catherine was experiencing is gone. That was this one down here, which was a main thread IO test violation. We try to avoid reading from the disk during startup. Through some side effect of a thing that her patch was doing, the disk was read early on during startup. We found a solution. And I've modified her solution slightly, but it is basically the same, and now I want to land those patches. Now, how do I do that? Because if we take a look I've got her patches here. I've made some alterations here. I'm gonna fold those changes into the prior patch. That's her patch. I'm gonna fold those changes in, and then I'm going to try and commandeer her revisions and land them. And it's been a while since I've done this, so this may not work. We'll see. This might just be heartache. This might end up being a lot of pain, but we'll see what happens. Now, not anyone can just commandeer someone's patch. Like, this is the sort of thing that you need to kind of have elevated rights to do. Thankfully, I have such elevated rights, I believe, so I can do this. Okay, so now we have Catherine's stack of patches. I'm going to commandeer these revisions. I might actually not need to commandeer them. I might be able to... I'm going to try this first. I'm going to go mozfab submit. Simplify the solution that avoids main thread IO slightly. And then I think there's like a force. And I'm going to see what happens if I do this. See if it's happy with it. So it's gonna go talk to Fabricator. It's gonna bypass a bunch of checks as work in progress, and saying, hold up, you can't do that. You don't own the revision. You should only update revisions you own. You can commandeer this revision if you want to become the owner. Missing reviewers. Running out with no whip to prevent this. Okay. I do need to commandeer it. At least I think I do. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I didn't accidentally change this just now. Yes, I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to commandeer all three of these. And I'm going to update the topmost commit to include the reviewer string because that's expected, and that's why I was saying it was giving a warning about saying that the patch would be whip. I'm also going to make sure that Catherine gets credit. Patch by K. Patenio. So I'm actually going to... here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to... Because I don't know if that's actually going to get encoded in whenever I try and land these. Normally, if I were to, like... just, like, land... If I was pushing directly to the repository... I'd get... Like, Catherine would get credit for free. But because Fabricator and Lando, I think, take patches off of Fabricator, they don't, like, merge patches necessarily. They apply patches. I think that information might be lost. So I'm going to patch by okay, Patenio. Yeah, I think that information gets lost. Patch by K. Patenio. Okay, now I'll submit. And I'll use no force. I won't use the force. I'm not going to use the force, Luke. We'll see how this goes. Still good. Wow, I don't know why this is taking so long. But while we're waiting for that, what's some other stuff I want to do? Well, so remember the Windows jump list stuff we were working on last week, and I was like, hey, I was very optimistic. I'm like, hey, it's a denouement. We're gonna close her up. Well, the patch that I landed to do the favicon off main thread caching thing, it got backed out. I think I know why. I saw the error message, and I think it's a pretty quick fix. Let's take a look at the error message, and I'll show you what I mean. So I rebased to a recent central, and actually, hold on, that's not the right bug. Yeah, it's this one. So I got backed out. Here's the failure log. I noticed this bug today. There's a bug in either in Tree Herder or in Central. Are you seeing this like glitchy layout? It's ridiculous. It also means that I can't scroll properly. So I have a feeling this might actually be a Tree Herder UI bug that I need to report. So I'm just going to open the raw log because the log viewer is very glitchy. Test. Unexpected fail. The test is failing right around, here's a bunch of logging. The test fails right around, where does it fail? Yeah, right here. Unexpected exception. Places utils favicons replace favicon data is not a function. And I was like, well, it should be. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Where did I use that particular line, and why isn't it there anymore? So let's take a look at our patches again. I'm pretty sure I use it in one place, and it's actually just in the test. Let's double check. Replace favicon data. Yeah, it's just in one place in the test. This method got removed recently, is what happened. Like, between the point where I had last rebased my patch and the point where I attempted to land it, this method got removed. It's a very rare occurrence because the favicon service doesn't change that much. But if we take a look at NSI favicon service, we can see what's happened to the interface over the past little while. Oh, meanwhile, hang on. I'm going to pause that thought just for a sec because our patches went up, and I think it's just the last one that needs to be approved. I think I can remove K. Patenua as the reviewer because the backup, like, I had already reviewed it. I'm gonna need someone to like rubber stamp this actually. Someone in the backup reviewers group. I'm gonna ask my colleague Fred to rubber stamp this. Hang on a sec. Hey, I commandeered Patenua's patches and am attempting to land, but I need someone who's not me in the backup reviewers group to approve such and such. Mind giving it the old rubber stamp? So we'll have to wait for that. Okay, so here's what changed recently in the favicon service. Like if we take a look at this May 1st, on May 1st, replace favicon data existed. Here was the function. And I'm pretty sure I reviewed some of these patches. So I'm a little annoyed with myself that I didn't know this, but like the method got removed. Replace favicon data was not removed there. It was removed in this one. So let's look at the change set. Remove replace favicon data and replace favicon data from data URL. Of course it was this one. So what did they get replaced with, and how do we use those instead? So let's take a look at the a bunch of stuff got removed. So like just the full interface got removed. So what got introduced? Set favicon for page. I think that's actually what we want. Set favicon for page. Let's see how we use that. Set favicon for page. And let's see how things use it. Sorry, I gotta go back. So it takes the page URI favicon. This signature is very similar, I think. Place. It's URI data MIME type and expiration. This is URI favicon URI data URL expiration callback. And let's see, were there usages that got changed? I'm not seeing any old usages that got changed. A bunch of tests got removed. Let's look for some set favicon for page. Let's look for some usages here. Right, those here, that all the replace favicons got replaced. I guess. No, it wasn't. When did they get replaced with set favicon for page? Here, it was here, full diff. And yeah, I did review this. So the way you use this is you so it's just a single call. We'll just say set favicon for page, and you pass it the fake favicon URI, the data item URI rather. Fake favicon URI, and then the data URL of the bits to actually encode as the favicon. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, we can actually very trivially, I think, reproduce this test failure. If I go mock test widget Windows tests, does it have those? Unit? No, it's going to be under widget tests, I guess. Tests, browser. Was it a browser test? Maybe it was an XPC shell test. Yeah, here we go. Test jump list builder, obtain, and cache favicon async. So this should fail. Load all that in memory. What's going on here, gang? It's taking forever. Okay, well, while we're waiting for that, another thing I want to do is I wrote a very simple scheduler for the backup service that we were talking about last week. Scheduler that lets us it lets us, sorry, let me finish my thought. Create backups at idle moments in the background when certain conditions are met, and I want to test them. I want to test the mechanism that I created and get it up for review. So maybe we can do that today as well. Okay, so we have our test failure here. Replace favicon data, not a function. So we're gonna update this test to use the new function. replace favicon data. So I think both of these end up getting replaced, just like combine into a single call, which is set favicon for page. And it'll look a little something like this. Set favicon for page, and then you pass it the first argument used to be the fake favicon URI, so we're actually going to reverse the order of these. Oh, it's already been reversed? Send fat. Okay, it's the same order, the same two arguments to start with as set and fetch favicon for page. So we can keep those. Get rid of these. And the principal, and we're just going to pass in the data URL as the last argument. Favicon mime type, don't need that. Favicon bytes. I need a data URL for it. This is like doing a mime type sniffing. Data URL. I'm gonna do this. I already know the mime type, so I can avoid that. Let data URL. Whoopsie daisy. Let. Was that an advertisement for like fried chicken? What? Whoa! I didn't want that. I'll have to watch the. I'll have to watch the stream again afterwards. But I thought like a thing came up that had like ads all over it. Did you see that? Did I like imagine that? Okay, so the data URL, we await a promise. We're gonna get the clamped array blob buffer file reader. Read as data URL blob the favicon data. I think in this particular case, I can, instead of doing a file reader on a blob, can I read just a bunch? Well, I guess I think we'll probably have to do it this way. Yeah, read a bunch of bytes in. Buffer equals uint clamped array. The favicon bytes. Get a buffer. The mime type is up here. File reader, reader result. Get the blob. And then set favicon for page. I want to, whoops. I need to read the instructions for this. Optional expiration and then a callback. So I'm going to give it the data URL as the third argument. I'm going to give it undefined here, and then I'm going to give it the callback, which is resolve. So let's see if that passes. What was the ad? Some image was there, not sure what it was though. Mike is due for some KFC, or his computer is at least. How did I bring that up? Yeah, where did that come from? I hit some kind of keyboard combination which showed me international. It was International Falafel Day. It was falafel. Okay, so it doesn't like this. Could not convert JavaScript argument 2. What's wrong with that? JavaScript argument 2 for line 72. Argument 2 is test favicon URI. Test favicon URI is a new URI. What's it supposed to be? An NSI URI. 3 URIs. Test page URI. That's a URI. Test favicon URI. Also a URI. Data URL. Argument 2. Could not convert it. Why? Second, it should just be an NSI URI. Okay, well, let's add a debugger. I haven't done this on a Windows machine before, but here's how we're going to do it. JS debugger port 6080. I'm going to go over here. Localhost 6080. Is this running yet? Not yet. How are you so fast at getting that screenshot there, Dennis? That's very impressive. So I can't attach the debugger because of a very annoying situation, which is that I need to modify the test to be like a Firefox test as opposed to just like a Gecko test. And the way I do that is you have to whoops, Tomo. Back up. You do this. Firefox Apter. I use the clipping feature on Twitch to get the last 60 seconds. It's so clever. Den Shub, so clever. I wish I could show you. I think there's something wrong with the monitor I'm using. I wish I could snip out what I'm seeing right now so you could see it. There's probably a way. Hang on. I think there's a way. Because there's like this halo around the very edges of the monitor that make it seem like I'm in like this dreamy dreamscape. Okay, let me share this picture in the chat. One sec. So I don't know if you can see that, but if you zoom in, there's like this weird. It's like my monitor is in a soap opera. There's this like haze around the edges, which I think is kind of hilarious. I don't know what happened. I haven't used this monitor in a long time, but okay. So our debugger is connected. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Is this classic retina burn? Is that what we're dealing with? So the second argument is also. Oh, it's the third argument. It was 0 indexed, but this is supposed to be an NSI URI. That's the problem. And it just happens to be a string. It got computed as a string instead. So that's the problem. So read as data URL, and then I need to like services io.new URI data URL. Kind of looks like burned out monitor or not burned out, but stuff has burned in. Yeah, I don't know what it would be because it's just along the edges. But yeah, it's like the effect is like my monitor is progressively going through some kind of flashback. Okay, so we have fixed it. Let us now absorb the change. Let's take a look at the change. We'll absorb it, and then we'll push the patch to Fabricator. Okay, I don't think we need this part. Maybe in the future, if we decide we desperately need to be able to do that debugger stuff more often, we can do that. But for now, I think we can revert it. I think it's just the test fix here. Okay, so I'm going to do HG absorb, which is a great tool because it lets me get the patches absorbed into the right commit. It's a portal to an alternate universe where this bug doesn't exist. I like it, new cool 1230. Just want to check something real quick. Yes, okay, good. I want to make sure I booked this room properly. I saw some people floating around. There's a bunch of people in Toronto today. I saw a bunch of people floating around my room. I want to make sure I hadn't accidentally taken someone else's room. So I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so the chunks are applied. I am now going to push this up. I'm going to go Moz, Fab. And this isn't just the favicon caching patches. This is like all of the removal patches as well. I'm going to land those as a second chunk, but I'm going to land those today as well. Moz, Fab, submit. Fix test failure in... What was the name of the test? Test jump list. Jump list builder. Obtain and cache favicon async. Caused by using a removed favicon service function method. And go. Oh, and it looks like I got the sign off from my colleague Fred to get this stuff. What was it? The other patch we were looking at, that should be accepted now. So all three are accepted. We're going to go ahead and land these. Bunch of landings, many landings. All right, here we go. We'll land this one first. Had previously landed. Linting is still in progress. Oh, unresolved comments. I got to figure that out. What are the unresolved comments? And can I resolve them? Right. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's go back to this. Those were mainly comments from the original author, Catherine, to herself. She normally closes those out before she lands. So, static analysis and linting are still in progress. I think we're fine. Actually, let me do one last double check here. Make sure I didn't do something silly. Mock lint outgoing fix on these patches here. It should be fine, but let's just double check. Oh, it did fix some stuff. Hilarious. What did it find? Nothing. Okay, it didn't fix anything. Great. All right, let's go ahead and land these. Meanwhile, these are being pushed up for review. And then I'm going to land the first chunk, and then I'll land the second chunk separately. And then where are we? We're in pretty good shape for 1:37 Eastern time. We're only 37 minutes in. We've done multiple landings, or we're planning on doing multiple landings here, which is fairly exciting. I guess I should have done a linting run, a linting thing here too. Let me just do that right now. Lint outgoing fix. I think I normally have that in VS Code. I have it doing it all the time. Like it just on save, it'll like prettify and it'll show me linting problems. But I don't think I have that configured on this Windows machine. Let's do that. And this will also do, like, because I've changed a bunch of C++ stuff, this is going to do the Clang formatting. Oh boy, lots of stuff to bring in. Better than several builds. Heck yeah. This is like karma to pay back for all those times where, like, you've just been sitting watching me build and not land things. Sorry, I'm just responding to a couple different messages. Okay, there was one warning, nothing fixed. Okay, so nothing serious. The warning was probably because I removed a thing from, in one of these patches I removed from Firefox.js, and that's not technically valid JavaScript. That's why, and it warns about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and land these next. So we're gonna do this batch first. Restore files page. Should I make a bug for you? Sorry, I'm just going to answer a question from someone in Matrix. 1 second. It's previously landed. It's good. It's good. Unresolved comments still. What you talking about? What unresolved comments? Oh yeah, the Lambda function stuff. Would probably be running something over this is true. I'll grant those parameters just return. Yeah, exactly. That'll be a way to resolve such and such. Okay, so I think that was a bunch of discussion that doesn't need to block this. Okay, let's try relanding again. Once all the parts of bug such and such are done, seems like we'll have enough to complete the restore. When a restore file is picked, should I make a bug for that? Actually, I have good news. So, yes. Okay. Actually, I think from the UI, yes. Let's do that. All right, so that's done. I don't know what the story is with AutoLand, if it's closed or... Oh, so this first batch will land shortly, and then I'll land the second batch shortly after that. Okay. Presuming that the tree doesn't get closed in the meantime. Well, even if it does, I'll just queue it for Lando. Okay, so what's next? I did this. I'm almost done. I'm done this. Reland and then land the legacy backend removal patches. And then maybe some tests for the backup scheduler. So I'm going to do that part now, the backup scheduler tests. So we're going to update to tip where I've got the backup scheduler. We'll take a look at kind of how it works. I'll explain the idea behind it, and then we'll start thinking about how we can test it. Because I haven't actually designed any tests or anything, and we'll design them together. We might have to re-architect it so that it's easier to test. That sometimes happens where you build a thing to fix a particular problem. I mean, I think this is supposed to be why some people like to do test-driven development, is you make it so that things are designed for test. I think there is some wisdom in that. In this particular case, I had testing in mind while I was building the mechanism, and then I haven't even thought about what tests I want to write, and so that may have been a mistake. Maybe I should have really thought more about how I'd want to test this before I built the mechanism, but you live and you learn, sort of. Okay, so let's take a look at the mechanism itself. Okay, so there's this thing. There's this thing inside of Firefox and Gecko called the user idle service. And what it does is it notices if no user input events are coming in. And like if there's just suddenly the user they're just away from their keyboard. So we're not getting keyboard input events or mouse input events. The browser might still be doing stuff, like web pages might still be animating, or a video is playing or something. But if the user's not doing anything, then we can detect that using the user idle service. And the way it works is you specify, like I've got a bunch of constants in here and default values, but effectively you get access to the service, and then hang on. You register yourself as an idle observer, and you give it some threshold. So in this particular case, I don't want to do a backup like every time the user just stops sending user input events. That'd be way too much. Creating a backup we're supposed to make it as lightweight as possible, but it still takes CPU and disk. Like you're copying all of this data, and so we want to try and find the right time to do it. So if the user is like doing stuff with their browser, that's not the right time. And if the browser itself is busy doing other stuff, like maybe the user's not sending it user input events, but it's playing a video, that's probably not a good time either. The ideal scenario is the user is not using the application whatsoever. They're like paying attention to a different one. Like maybe they've got, they've looked away and they're talking to their roommate. They've left to go have lunch. They have a different application in the foreground. They went to a meeting and came back to their machine. Like these are perfect times to do this sort of thing, is when the user is just like away and the browser's not doing anything. So the user idle service is great for finding when the user input is not being sent, but you can also supply it with some threshold. In this case, oh wow, I didn't realize this, that I still have this line in here. I need to replace that. But basically, you say, I want to register for idle, but only after a certain period of idle time. So if, in this particular case, I think what I really want is about 5 minutes of idle time. So I want to be called whenever the user input events have not been sent for about 5 minutes, and then call me. And at that point, we will consider doing a backup. That's the idea. And then, like, at that point, we actually check at that point to determine whether or not backups are enabled. Like, if backups aren't enabled, our callback just exits immediately. We go, like, oh, I guess we're not doing anything. So, like, scheduled backups are not available, or they're not enabled. So, disengage. And, one could argue that, well, if backups aren't enabled, why do you still have the observer registered? Well, by definition, these things aren't meant to run very frequently when the user's doing anything particularly useful. And if we enter a function and it's like a no-op that's fairly cheap, and this allows us to avoid a bunch of like observer registration, deregistration shenanigans, which can go sideways. Because one of the things about the user idle service is that you can register an observer multiple times, the same observer multiple times, and it's fine with that. And that, I don't want to ever get into a situation where we've got multiple idle timers or idle callbacks registered due to a logic error. And, you can suddenly have like a backups being scheduled to occur sporadically throughout an entire period of idle time. I do not want that. So what I've done is I've made sure to only ever register one, and regardless of whether or not backups scheduled backups are enabled or not, and then in the callback, check to see whether backups are enabled or not. That's the idea. And what we do after we, maybe I'll open this up inside of code instead so you can see the syntax highlighting. When we see the idle callback fire, we check to see whether or not we're enabled. We calculate what now is, and we determine whether or not the last backup state, I just realized that last backup date might actually not exist. If last backup date and last backup date greater than now, then that's very strange. Something has gone horribly wrong where the last backup date was somehow in the future. Maybe the user's clock has been misconfigured, has changed, in which case, we'll just pretend that the last backup date never occurred, and we will then schedule one. We'll basically schedule one because we can no longer trust that the time has been monotonically moving forward if somehow the timestamp for the last backup is in the future somehow. So in that case, we'll just be cautious and we'll say, okay, well, let's perform a backup. So we'll clear the backup date, and then we will determine whether or not the difference between the last backup date and now is greater than some threshold. And this particular, daylight savings time, exactly. You always have, time is so tricky because invariably there'll be some set of users that are idle and they have their computers on and the clocks change. Clocks go back an hour or something, in which case we need to be able to handle that. So what we do is we take a look at the difference between now and the last backup date, which at this point we can assert either doesn't exist or is less than now because of this routine up here. And then if it's greater than some threshold, because we don't want to create a backup every couple of minutes, even if the user's idle, that's again way too much, way too many CPU cycles, and it's probably not that useful. We want to have some threshold of time. Right now we're picking a number out of the air. We're going to say once an hour maximum we'll create a backup. And maybe we'll adjust that. Maybe it'll be once every 5 hours or once every half an hour or once every... Who knows? We don't know yet. There's a lot of variables here that will still need tuning once this starts getting tested and we start testing it on different types of hardware. But for now, we're just picking an hour out of the air and we'll make it configurable. So for like experimentation and stuff. And then in the event that there was no last backup date or we are with the threshold is crossed, then we will create a backup. Otherwise, we'll say, hey, the last backup was too recent. Let's not do it this time, and the idle callback will exit, and we'll continue on. That's how the mechanism works. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to do, is I only wanted to do this when the machine is idle. Because if the machine is, or not just that the user is idle, but that the machine is also got some free time, like it's not doing something really, really busy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wrap this inside of a, request idle callback. I think I have something like that on Chrome utils, or is that on CU? Request idle. Window, request idle callback. There's some utility. I don't have a window in this context, which is why I can't just use window.request idle callback. Idle callback.webidl. Is there something? Request idle callback on window. Your Chrome utils idle dispatch. That's what it's called. Not bound to a particular DOM window. And my idle request options. What are they? Whoops. Oh, it's just some timeout that if it doesn't occur by that timeout, it won't occur. So I'm going to say Chrome utils idle dispatch I'm going to say I'm going to say queuing a backup request. Queuing a backup for next idle. I'll say lazy log console debug for next. Queuing a backup for next via idle dispatch. Idle backup. Idle dispatch. Fired. Creating a backup. Attempting to create a backup. And then I'm going to put this back. Shorten this string. Okay. Pretty happy. Now we can think about testing. Also, has that set of patches landed? Yes, and there was some code formatting applied, which I'm surprised about. What code formatting? Oh, okay. Fine. Okay. Maybe I'll wait for this to merge before I land the other set of patches, which is to remove the old jumpless backend. And I'll do that tomorrow, this afternoon, whenever this closes out. I'll do that. So you don't get to see the last little bit where we finally send the old backend, the old legacy backend, out to pasture. But hey, you saw it here first. You know what the deal is. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let's not get distracted. So what have we done? Done that. Done that. Done that. Waiting on that. Thinking about tests. All right. Let's think about these tests. Danny Colin is making a joke about daylight savings time, and he's not actually saving any time today. I think that's a pretty good joke. Let's play some sounds. Let's play some sounds to celebrate that joke.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what happened? What happened? What happened?
You all? Or just spill your beans.
Good stuff. All right. So let's write out a list of things we want to test. Test that. Calling on idle. Because I've exposed some of these functions so that we can write unit tests so that we don't have to I don't want to test the idle service, for example. The idle service is already tested, and our test should not test that. Our test should presume that the idle service works. We either mock it out with our own idle service, or that we know is minimal and will do the job, or we bypass it altogether. So test that calling on idle and a backup has never occurred causes a backup to get scheduled. Test that calling. That's interesting. Idle dispatch is going to make this kind of fun because it'll just kind of eventually be called. So we'll just have to kind of wait for that to be called in the test. We might have to write a utility for that. Test that calling on idle and a backup has occurred recently does not cause a backup to get scheduled. You know what I'll do actually is I'll go like schedule backup on idle. Schedule create backup on idle, and I'll make this something that we can override. Create backup on idle. Calls create idle. Calls backup service dot create backup at the next idle moment. The next moment when the event queue is not busy with higher priority events. Just because the user hasn't sent us events in a while doesn't mean that the browser itself isn't busy. It might be, for example, playing video or a complex or doing a complex calculation that the user is actively waiting to complete, and we don't want to draw resources from that. Instead, we'll use Chrome Utils idle dispatch to wait until the event loop isn't so busy with higher priority things. In the parent process, this is broken out into its own method to make it easier to stub out in tests. This is, I guess I can mention that over here. This is intentionally broken out into its own method to make it easier to stub out in tests. Okay. So test that calling, that way we don't have to wait. We just like see if this gets called. Because this should all be synchronous. Like when you'll go through this on idle synchronously, and then we can override. We can stub this out and see if it was ever called, and that'll be our clue that things were scheduled. Test that calling on idle in a backup has occurred recently does not cause a backup to get scheduled. Test that calling on idle in a backup has occurred, but after the threshold does cause a backup to get scheduled. Test that calling on idle and a backup occurred in the future somehow causes a backup to get scheduled. What else? Base case. Never made a backup. Covered. That's the first one. Fairly common case. Have a recent backup. That's covered. Slightly uncommon case. It's time to create a backup. That's covered. Weird case. Backups. Last backup was in the future. Covered. I think that's it. I think those are the tests. Weird case, autoconfig. Well, yeah, I guess someone could have fiddled with all the prefs such that, backups are happening either very aggressively or not aggressively at all. I don't think I'm going to write tests for that. I guess I will test that. Init backup scheduler. Why is that color coded? Init backup scheduler registers an idle callback. Test that. Uninit backup scheduler unregisters an idle callback. Test that. Observing the idle notification calls on idle. Test that observing the quit application granted. Notification calls on init backup scheduler. Okay, I think those are my tests. So we're gonna add a new test, mock, add test, browser, components, backup test, XPC shell test, backup service, scheduler.js. Add that. We'll build. We'll make sure we can run the test, even though it's just a stub of a test. One of the things I really like about our project right now is that we have a ton of tests. Backup is one of those things that has to work. Like we want to have like really, really rigorous testing for this. And not just wait till the very end. Like we will of course do a bunch of manual testing. We're gonna throw a bunch of QA at this, and we're gonna have to figure out like, what happens whenever a backup from 2023 gets restored in 2035. Like we'll have to figure that out. But for now, we're just trying to make sure that the whole end-to-end thing, like we're testing the units, but we also have end-to-end tests in automation for this stuff. What is the meaning of MZ Unified? I presume you mean Mozilla Unified, this? That is the name of the repository that I have cloned that has the Firefox and Gecko source code in it. Whenever you do a building Firefox, whenever you build Firefox, one of the first things that they ask you to do is, here, building Firefox on Windows, install Mozilla build. It'll do, at some point it tells you to clone, although I think Bootstrap will do it, where basically it'll pull down the source code from the repository, and the repository is called Mozilla Unified. It used to be called Mozilla Central, but Mozilla Unified is interesting because it has a bunch of branches that have historically been separate from Central, all in the same repository, which is very handy if you're trying to move stuff between branches, long-lived branches. So that's what Unified is. Hopefully that helped. Okay, so mock, test, browser, components, backup, test, XPC shell test, backup service, scheduler. Aldato says thanks. Good. You're welcome. You are welcome. Great question. Keep the questions coming. And I'll do my best to answer them if I can. I can't always guarantee that I can answer your questions, though. I don't always have the answers. I'm actually going to do these tests first. Oh. Jesus. Come on. Okay. Tests that calling init backup scheduler registers a callback with the idle callback user SI user idle callback service. Is that what it's called? User idle callback service? Or maybe it's just user idle service. Yeah, user idle service. And one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to have to set up a fake user idle service. I think I've seen this. There's like a fake one here. Overrides idle service of mock. Idle is commonly used for maintenance tasks. Running database vacuum or cleanups. Yeah, basically. Oh, this is something I get for free? Fake idle service. Interesting. How does this work? Oh, and it add idle observer becomes a no-op. Fake idle service. Do get idle. Which stores an idle service factory if needed and returns the service's handle. Override idle service by default. Do get idle, restore the factory and get the service. Do people do that? Do get idle? Not really, eh? Idle maintenance. Do get idle. Idle daily notifications. So I'm going to be doing this, switch to Zalo for this test. I think I've seen a test where someone registered a slightly different idle service. Yeah, like this. Tests. Yeah, this is kind of what I want. Fake idle service will register that one, and then we mock registrar. So we actually just replace the existing fake idle one with a slightly different fake idle one. And the thing to remember is that the idle service might be used by other stuff, but I think I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna do something similar to this. Idle service activity. I don't need to record activity. Reset. Fire observers. State. What does that mean? State. Observer. Observe. State. Fire observer. Idle time. I'll add an observer. Delete an observer. I don't need to test the idle service. I just need to test that the idle observer method was called. So really all I need to do, I don't need to do any of this. I need to implement the minimal, I need idle time, add, remove, and disabled. Disabled isn't included, but let's put idle time back. What's idle time supposed to be? The amount of time milliseconds that has passed since the last user activity. Now a valid idle time report. Zeros return scam if the user never interacted with the browser at all. Okay. If true, the idle service is temporarily disabled. It should only be used in automation. Okay. Disabled true, sure. This is a very thin NSI user idle service implementation that doesn't do much, but with sign-on we can stub out some parts of it to make sure that the backup service uses it properly, uses it in the way we expect. Okay. Expected method shorthand. Oh, okay. What does that mean? Like this? Probably this. And these are not used. Okay, now we register the fake observer using the mock registrar, which is very handy. And we'll set it up. Fake idle service. What does mock registrar return? Mock registrar. Register returns the CID. Okay. So we've got our fake idle service set up. And then what we're going to do, test init backup scheduler. We're going to create a new backup service. We're going to call BS init backup scheduler. And BS uninit backup scheduler. Test init uninit backup scheduler. We're going to do both. We need it to clean up its observer implementation, its observer as well. So first of all, what happens if I just go like assert okay true test? This should pass, I think. How are things going in Autoland world? Build bustage. Was it me? Did I do it? No. I think this is infra. Right? Hope so. Jeez. This all looks fully broken. Unified. Did I break that? No, I didn't. Someone else did. Whew! That's good. Okay, so that all passed. That's good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say let sandbox equal sign on create sandbox. We're going to make sure that we restore the sandbox at the end of this. Then we're going to say sandbox.stub idle service add idle observer and then we're going to say we're also going to stub out remove idle observer. Assert OK. Oh, and I have to await this. Assert OK. Idle service dot add idle observer dot called once. Add idle observer was called. That works. And then we need to make sure, now the first argument is going to be a function. We just need to make sure it's a function, and then the second one is the number that we expect in the preference. Assert OK. Idle service dot add idle observers dot what was it, get call zero first call args first call dot args 0 instance of function. The first argument was a function. First argument to add idle observer was a function. And the second should be that value that's in pref. Args1 assert equal what is the pref? Add idle observer idle threshold seconds, which is this int pref. Idle threshold seconds pref name, which is this one. Services prefs get int pref. The idle threshold preference value was passed. That's the second argument. Add idle observers is undefined. Add idle observer, sorry. First argument was a function. False equals true. It's not a function. What's it supposed to be? What was it then? Observer. Idle observer. What is it then? Huh? What is it? What is it? Oh, I might need to do this. Function dot is instance. Is this cross compartment? Is that a thing I can do? Function is instance. No. No. Type of function. Type of assert okay. Type of assert equal type of function. Is that how it works? Object. Is it an object? Why would it be an object? This observer equals, this should be a function. All right, it's debugger time. Idle service, add idle observer, first call args. It's some it's gone through the xpcom gunk somehow. Oh yeah, because we okay, it's gone through XPCOM. Okay, so I need to, it needs to be, so I need to be able to QI it to an observer. So assert okay. Instance of CI NSI observer. First argument was an NSI observer. Oh, don't need the debugger then. Okay, that's good. Second was the number. Now let's pretend that we the preference for the idle threshold changed before we could uninit the backup scheduler. We should ensure that this change is not reflected whenever deregistration occurs. The idle callback occurs, since it wouldn't match the registration arguments. Okay, so we're going to change. We're also going to ensure assert okay idle service dot remove idle observer not called. Remove idle observer has not been called yet. And then we're going to set this pref. Set int pref. I don't know. 100. Let's actually get this value. Let const threshold seconds equals that. We'll make sure that that equals that, and then we'll add 5. And then we'll make sure services prefs clear int pref, clear user pref. This, and actually, let's replace this string that we keep using. Const idle threshold seconds pref name equals that. We'll use that here and here and here. Now we should ensure that idle observer was not called again. And that remove idle observer was called once, actually. Remove idle observer was called once. And then remove idle observer is an instance of CI NSI observer. And we're going to make sure that they equal one another. I don't know if this is going to work. Equal. Observer. The first argument to add idle observer matches the first argument to remove idle observer. And then don't need this. Assert that the remove idle observer first call args1 is the idle threshold preference value. The unchanged idle threshold preference value is passed. I'm going to say the original is passed as the second argument. Good. Okay, that's tests that calling on observe with the idle notification causes the on idle method calling backup service on observe with the idle notification causes the backup service on idle method to be called add task async function. Test backup service on observe also tests that passing the quit application granted notification causes the remove idle backup service remove idle callback not remove idle callback uninit backup scheduler method to be called. Actually, let's make that a separate test. Quit application granted. Quit application granted. Notification causes the backup service uninit backup scheduler method to be called. Okay, here we go. Let BS equals new backup service. BS. Okay, so let's sandbox equals sign on to create sandbox start restore. So the same structure for both. And we're going to stub out on idle. BS on observe. And it gets passed. I'm just going to pass it null. 500 because I think idle notifications get the what gets passed is the idle si idle user idle service. What's the first argument to the callback? The observer, the subject will always be the idle service itself, subject, topic, and then the data. Okay. So we're going to pass in, I guess, the idle service. The subject for the idle notification is always the idle service itself. Idle. And then assert OK BS on idle called once backup service on idle was called. Okay. So far so good. And then stubbing out uninit backup scheduler. I believe for quit application granted, it's null pointer. Subject for the quit application granted notification is null. And then let's just double check. Quit application granted. App shell. Yeah, null pointer. Okay. So that's good. That's done. What's next? Okay, it's 2:33. Let me just check my calendar real quick. What do I have to do today? Do I have to run to anything? Not right away, but I'm gonna see if I can blast these last few tests real quick. See if I can do them in like the next 5 minutes. Test that calling on idle and a backup has never occurred causes a backup to get scheduled. Okay. Idle, no backup exists. Okay, sandbox. We're gonna say effectively what I'm gonna do is go BS on idle, and I need to stub out the schedule. What was it? That thing we split out. Create backup on idle. You know what? I think we can call this, because there's like multiple idles. On idle, create backup on idle dispatch. Yeah, that's clear. Dispatch, BS on idle. So we need to set the prefs such that no backup has ever occurred before. And the way we do that is we need to make sure that scheduling backups is enabled. I'll do that probably during setup. Services prefs, set bool pref true. Services prefs clear user pref. Scheduling enabled. Okay, and then what's the last backup? So make sure no backup is recorded. Backup. Last backup timestamp is recorded. Services prefs set int pref, or clear user pref rather. Clear user pref. Last backup pref name. And then cert okay bs dot create backup on idle dispatch called once. The backup service dot create backup on idle dispatch was called. Good. No backup exists. What was the next one? Test that calling. When idle backups occurred recently, does not cause a backup to get scheduled. So recently. So we have to calculate recent. Let's say 5 seconds ago. Let now equals date dot now divided by 5,000. Or how do I get 5 seconds ago? JavaScript date 5 seconds ago. Is that true? Let's test this. Date 5 seconds ago. That looks very plausible. Yeah, okay. And then I need to no, I need to get the what's the numeric get date? No. How do I get the no. To I don't want a string, I want a number. JavaScript date object to milliseconds since epoch. Get time. That's the one. Yeah. That's how we store it. Okay. So we get 5 seconds ago. Let's calculate a date that's 5 seconds from now. Let now equals new date. Let 5 seconds ago equal new date. Now dot get time minus 5 times 1,000 milliseconds. And then set int pref 5 seconds ago divided by 1,000, I think is how we do this. Get, what was it, get time. Yeah, okay. And then assert not called. Was not called. Now is not a function. Now, right. Oh, I also need to make sure that the threshold is sufficiently large. Needs to be at least 120 seconds. We'll pretend that our threshold is 2 minutes. Threshold between is 2 minutes. We'll clear that. I don't know, actually 20 seconds. And this should pass. No, because of line 39. Set bool pref, set int pref, set int pref. All right, I gotta wrap this up. I think. Create backup on idle. Dispatch was not called, but it was called. Okay, not called on idle, despite the fact that our last backup was 5 seconds ago. Okay, I'm curious. Let's walk through it, and then I'll call it there. Hello, hello, hello. Where are we? What the heck? What? Error rate? That did not work properly. Let's put a debugger inside of on idle. Maybe let's build just in case. Oh, it's gonna get called a whole bunch. Hold on a second. Let me. Oh, this is gonna be annoying. On idle. Okay, here we go. And on idle. Okay. Should be enabled. Get now. Last backup. Oh, I need to floor it. Yeah, I need to floor that. Last backup date. Why is last backup date null? Get int pref. Because it's a float. That's why. Right. Okay. I know what's going on. Because you can't use a float. Where is it? Scheduler. Get time outside times line. Divide by 1,000. Math.floor. What? All right, one more time into the breach. What's going on here? What? I always think of Darth Vader whenever the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope, when the Millennium Falcon comes in and Darth Vader goes, "What?" I think it's so funny. For some reason, it can't stand that. Or you know what I'll do? Might be a problem with the debugger, I'm not sure. But backup service on idle. Break here. Or almost break there. Then break here. Yes, okay. Now, and then, oh, for some reason, it's still afloat. Doesn't make any sense. Let's go back up to the test here. When we set 5 seconds ago to be that. why is last backup date. Oh, it's null right now, but date now divided by 1,000, that's a float. Last backup date is null. Why is it null? I've done something wrong. There's a bug. I'm glad we did this. There's a bug. Last backup date. We should, whenever we call... Okay, that's when we create a backup. When we init the backup... Oh, have I not initted the backup scheduler? That's what's wrong. I think I need to init the thing. Sandbox, create sandbox, BS, init backup scheduler. Okay, that's what's wrong. Also, whenever I compute now, we're going to do math.floor on it. Okay, so that got that sorted out. I still need debuggers in here. No. Okay, so I'm going to call it there for now. We've got most of these tests written. I'm going to amend my patch. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 368 of The Joy of Coding. We almost got all those tests written. We landed a bunch of stuff today. Hopefully it all sticks. And yeah, it was fairly productive. It was one of those productive episodes. I'm pretty happy about that. All right, well, I'm going to call it there. Thanks again for watching. And I'll hopefully see you next week with episode 369. And that's fun because each number, or the 3 times 2 is 6, times 3 is 9. That's fun. That's a fun number, 369. Other than that, it should be a relatively normal episode. But maybe we'll see you then. With episode 369, should be on June 19th. Which is that Juneteenth? I need to determine whether or not I'm actually going to be doing... Who knows? Who knows? I might be streaming next week. We will see. I have to check some things. But watch this space, and I'll let you know. All right, well, thanks again, everybody. Have yourselves a great week. I'll hopefully see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.